is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back to the Mid-Morning Show. And this is the part of the show that we really wanted to educate you about. I think a subject that many people haven't thought of or brought to the fore, which I think is imperative for us to actually deal with this morning. And that this is why we're gonna talk to you about early released parolees and the effect it has on the community they live in. And I think it's an imperative subject. So we're asking all of you to join us this morning and get educated about this particular subject. And on the line with me, I have Maulana Ahmad Namutamba from the Muslim Prison Board. He's a graduate of the Darul Uloom in Newcastle, a graduate of the University of Johannesburg with a Bachelor of Education and Honours, Masters in Business Management. And he also taught in Azadville. But I think also being the Vice Chairman of the National Muslim Prison Board and the functionary of the Department of Correctional Services is where Maulana comes in this morning to be able to paint a better picture for us and give us a better understanding of the particular questions that we have in mind and the education we'd like to bring to the fore. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa barakatuh. Jazakallah for having me.
Welcome to our show this morning, Maulana Ahmad. It's such a pleasure having you on our show this morning. And I think we're talking about a very important subject, which I think many a times goes unnoticed and people don't actually want to tap into chatting about it. But I think it's important that we educate society out there about the types of situations people are in and how they can, get involved in bettering things and how people that are involved in these particular spaces can better their lives as well. So Jazakallah so much for joining us this morning on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time out. Let's talk about you and your involvement, in the Muslim Prison Board and what it means for you.
Basically, it is a Quranic injunction that orders us as Muslims, where Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran that فَأَصْلِحُوا ذَاتَ بَيْنَكُمْ إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Indeed, Muslims are brothers. So we need to reconcile the differences that are between us, meaning that differences and making mistakes in life is part and parcel of a human being. And Allah mentions in the Quran that khuliqal insana dha'ifa, man was created weak. Through that weakness, we will commit errors in this life. And through the test of Allah, some will succeed, some will not succeed. So that's why correctional centers are there for such institution to try and bring about reformation and rehabilitation of individuals. And I think we should look at it this way, that all of us at some point we are also, people of sin, people who commit errors. And it's unfortunate that some find themselves in correctional centers. So my involvement in the National Muslim Prison Board is to try and, first of all, to bring reformation in ourselves who are doing this work and try and reform others as well. So that is the role that we are playing, and to try and make those who have made mistakes in life, for them to rectify their mistakes and become contributing members of society meaningfully and be part and parcel of the global community.
I agree with you there, but let's focus on the stigmatization of prisoners, because when society finds out that there's a particular person that was sitting in prison for a while and has now come out and they're a parolee, of course we know that the types of situation that parolee finds themselves in is not a very positive one. People are not taking easy to it because there's a lot of questions they ask themselves, and I think there's also that element of fear. Maulana Namutamba, help us with that. How do we deal with that? Because the thing is, I think it's very difficult when a person is stigmatized. You're not literally giving them that second chance at life for them to be able to better themselves and turn themselves around and make them understand the mistakes that they've actually made in their life.
Yes. I think it's rightfully so that people will be cautious of a person that has come from a correctional center. But we as the Muslim Prison Board and the Department of Correctional Service is there to try and rehabilitate the person while he's still in the correctional center, and as well as bring awareness to the community he comes from, that the member has actually rectified his life. So the members of the community as victims of such an individual, it's important for them to be precautious and also to try and understand that a person has made a mistake, and that mistake shouldn't be pinned on a person for the rest of his life. But the person who's coming from the correctional service as well need to show the community that a person has changed his life, has turned the corner, and is no longer a menace to society, and is there to contribute meaningfully towards his life and the community at large. But it is a challenge, and it is not an easy thing, especially when the crime that has been committed by the person is considered as very serious in the sight of the community.
I agree with you there. Talking about, you say while people are in prison is when the actual thing is happening, the rehabilitation as such, which I think is really good, because that's where it needs to start. I also just want to quickly welcome Golden Miles Bhudu on the line. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to tap into you shortly to get your side of the story of things. So we really appreciate you taking the time and joining us on the mid-morning show with myself, Nafeesa Dangor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Is it the Molana that's speaking on the other side of the line?
That's right. That's Maulana Ahmad Namutamba is on the line with me as well. We're just going to quickly go for a voice note. Somebody has sent us a voice note that they would like you to hear before we get further into the conversation. So let's first listen to that voice note, and then we'll go further into the conversation.
Assalamu alaikum, and jazakumullah khair for a very interesting topic. I think we need to firstly understand that Islam acknowledges the rights of prisoners. However, we as a community have forgotten the rights of prisoners in Islam. As a human being, we have absolutely no right to be judging the actions of another human being simply because the depths of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and forgiveness is incomprehensible and unimaginable. And simply because we reside in a country whereby the judicial system is absolutely flawed. So there are people inside prison that are being convicted for crimes that they have not done. But through bribery, through corruption, they are now facing jail time, and they do not have the money or the financial means to defend their cases. And as a result, they simply continue going by or getting through their sentences. Now, when it comes to prisoner rehabilitation, I think it is the fundamental right of every single human being to be given an education. The first word of the Quran revealed to the Prophet ﷺ was Iqra. Through reading, through knowledge, through acquiring knowledge, we can turn an uncivilized human being into a civilized one. And hence, when it comes to ta'aleem, when it comes to knowledge, the Muslim Prison Board has a very, very significant role to play in that department. Unfortunately, from my past experiences, I do not think that they are doing enough in terms of providing this ta'aleem or this education to the prisoners. Let alone education, there isn't even Jummah khutbah or Jummah prayers basically taking place inside the prisons. On the other hand, hats off to the Christian organizations inside the prisons. So at Sun City, there's an organization called Kairos. And I was so impressed with the work that this organization actually does. So every year they have an Ijtima'iyya program for the Christian prisoners. They have a full support group made up of volunteers, teenagers, psychologists who meet up with the prisoners. They do a lot of ta'aleem. They have a lot of other programs and sort of courses that the prisoners can actually do. And it's a whole support system. So the prisoner doesn't feel alone, and they also sort of support them and prepare them for when they actually get released. When they sort of get out of prison, they sort of prepare them for life outside prison, to the extent of actually providing them with a job once they actually come out of prison. Now, this is lacking when it comes to Muslim prisoners. I found that many of the Muslim prisoners told me that they actually felt alone. There wasn't a proper support structure in place.
Malana Ahmad Namutamba, what is your reaction to this particular guest's voice note? This is something she sent in. What is your take on this?
I didn't know that was the topic that we were supposed to cover. We're supposed to actually cover on parolees, but nevertheless, what I would tell you is that doing enough in a correctional center, it is challenging. One is that even the Cairo she has mentioned, it is a challenge because you are given an hour per week to do what you have to do, number one. So you are not going to cover much in that period of time.
For sure.
And secondly, the sister mentioned that there is no Juma taking place. I think you understand as far as our injunction of the Quran is concerned, it is not further for a person in a correctional center to perform Juma Salah. And because of certain conditions, and one of the conditions is that Juma should be performed on a place where the individual is free to go to any place of worship and then conduct the Juma, or the people from outside have access to go in there. So that whole idea of saying it is part of in the correctional center, there is a different schools of thought in that. So in certain correctional centers, we do perform Juma. In certain correctional centers, we don't perform Juma because of that difference of opinion and of it being not compulsory for an inmate to perform Juma, but their Farad Salah, which is Dur Salah, it is compulsory for them to perform their Salah. And remember, Juma is one Salah in a week, which is important for a free person, but not for a person who's incarcerated. And secondly, there are other 4 Salahs that a person has to perform individually. So there are more Salahs that a person performs individually when he's on his own. And to say that the Muslim Prison Board, yes, we have challenges. I accept that we are not doing 100% because of the time limits. And especially in this lockdown, we were not even allowed to go into correctional centers as well.
Correct.
And also, the sister needs to remember also, I will mention a few challenges that we face. One is when we go back to the community even to raise funds, it's a challenge for the Muslim Prison Board because of the stigmatization that we have in society, that they are not willing to give resources and time to go and save the brothers and sisters who are in correctional center. And the Muslim Prison Board, it is a voluntary organization. I think the sister also can join us in this endeavor as well, because the people who are doing this work, it's not a full-time job. You take an hour a week to go and see to the Muslim brothers and sisters. So it is upon the sister, we send the message as well, that she must understand that it is a responsibility as well as it is mine, that we need to do something about it. And if they want to volunteer, we are there as the Muslim Prison Board for them to come and assist in regard. Because all the people who are doing this work are volunteers and they've got other work. And because of lack of support from the Muslim community, that is why also we have these challenges as well.
That's so true. Golden Miles, thank you so much for joining us on the line today. Your story is a very interesting one, and I hope you don't mind if I just read a little bit of it out so that the listeners can get an idea of what you've been through in your life. Are you okay with that?
No, it's fine. You can continue. It's my pleasure.
Okay, so I know you wanted to become a teacher and then a politician, and after being unemployed for 2 years, you of course had no option but to turn to crime. and then got yourself into trouble where you then spent almost 7 years in prison. You were offered parole, but declined because the conditions stated that you were prohibited from leaving to the world what prison was like. What was it like for you in prison? What were your challenges, and how does it feel like to be out of prison now, and being on a different space, should we say? Paint us the picture. We want people to understand what it's like and how we can help take this, firstly, the stigma away, and then, of course, try and help the prisoners when they come out. And as Malana was speaking earlier, it's all about talking about parolees and trying to help them integrate themselves back into society with lots of dignity, because as we know, they need to get a second chance at life.
Well, thank you very much, man. You see, when I count on the top of my fingers, and good afternoon to the Molana on the other side, and I agree fully what he has said up to so far in the first caller. Let me say, 35 years of my life has been invested in the fighting for the rights of sentenced and unsentenced prisoners, and we have far more frequently also included in our activities the rights of the victims of crime and violence, which is very, very silent, and nobody talks too much about it. And I must say that I've grown old, in this activity. When I went to prison, and by the way, my profession, I'm a qualified laboratory technician.
Yes.
International diploma en analyse chemica bekom in 1985, 'n jaar voor ek gearresteer was, aangekla was en gefonnis was. So we started this organization, the South African Prisoners Organization for Human Rights at Modderby Prison, and we were encouraged by the last Delmas Silas Ponto Caesar political detainees. And I have been, I've abandoned my profession and my career as a laboratory technician. En ek het natuurskykende biologie algebra wiskunde en wiskunde gedoen. And I did it all in Afrikaans. And I think that is the reason why powers that be, since the dawn of our democracy, cannot tolerate me, are afraid of me, and do not want to have anything to do with me, because I'm not a liar, traitor, or a hypocrite. But that is what I didn't want to say, but I said it in any event. The organization was established whilst I was there. I was released in 1991. I started this campaign. They call it a one-man crusade. And during the heydays of the Burma Silas, we were supported in terms of financial, material, infrastructural, and human resources. After the Mandelas and the Ahmad Katradas and the Sisulus of this world went, the organization was trampled on, it was suffocated, it was strangled, and the organization is just surviving by the grace of Allah and the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Yes, and I mean, knowing that you, Golden Bhudu, knowing that you are the one that goes out to actually you're a rehabilitation speaker and advisor to offenders, ex-offenders that are parolees, and teaching them how to integrate themselves into society, I think is an imperative one, because this is what is important. Because I mean, as I was saying to Malana earlier, when they go out there, there's the stigma attached to them, and it's having to educate also not just the parolees, but society itself, about how they can help integrate these people back into society in a dignified manner as such.
That's not a problem. That's not a problem. The problem is it's those who are in strategic positions politically for the wrong or the right reason, who has forgotten that where we come from and that they have inherited not only a brutal department of prisons, which they now call correctional services, they have inherited apartheid, and they haven't worked to do away with the stigma of apartheid. They haven't worked very hard to repair the damage apartheid has done. The Correctional Services Act as it is, the Constitution as it is, the White Paper as it is, an international declaration as they are. There's nothing wrong with those documents. The problem is the human beings, the head counts and the warm bodies that are sitting on their fingers and every day concocting, planning how to steal the next billion rand. So that is the problem this country is facing. And by the way, the rights of prisoners is embedded in Chapter 2 of the Bill of Rights, Section 35, subsection 2, paragraph E. The fallacy or the anomaly is nowhere in the Constitution can I refer you to the chapter, the section, and the subsection, and the paragraph that talks about defending the rights of crime, violence, and the victims of crime and criminals. That is the biggest anomaly that should have been addressed 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and maybe 25 years ago. But it is the human factor, the head count, and the warm bodies that is sitting on their fingers and haven't joined the struggle to move forward. That is why they are stealing everything that it moves.
Okay, back to you, Maulana Ahmad. Let's talk about the rehabilitation that you've been busy with in the prison structure within itself. Does that rehabilitation take place as well post-prison, outside of the prison area once the parolee is out? Are you giving them that added support structure from the Muslim Prison Board? Is that taking place as well? Because I think it's very important as far as rehabilitation is concerned, because you must remember something, these people have been in a very different environment for so many of their years of their lives, and having to integrate back into society is very difficult because it's a totally new environment for them. You used to that type of experiences that they've had for that many a year.
Yes, I agree with you, Sister Nafeesa. What the Muslim Prison Board is doing is we have sister bodies that we have, the NGOs like Sanzaf, the Jamiats, and all charitable organizations, your Ashraf al-Aid, and all these sister organizations that we have. So what we do is that we, on a referral basis, when a person has been actually released, they are referred for their social welfare to be catered by these organizations. And for those who need to study as well, because we must understand also that rehabilitation has to come from the inmate himself as well, that he wants to actually do something about his life. And it is something that actually that is lacking on our correctional services in South Africa, is that rehabilitation is not compulsory when an inmate is in a correctional center. They choose programs to do, but it is not compulsory. So I think one or the other.
Just to butt in there, Maulana, don't you think that they should actually make it compulsory? Because the thing is, what happens is, obviously, when you're in that type of environment, if you're getting the rehabilitation and the education while you're there, it is already your support structure and your spinal cord for when you're going to come out from there, because then you're already going to have some idea of what it is that you need to do post-prison. I think that's correct. Because what's happening at the moment is it's a big problem.
That is important. I think to tie up to that voice recorder that you played earlier is that they need to understand that in the correctional service, the government, they've got educationists, they've got psychologists, they have all this infrastructure that is there, but inmates need to have access to that. They need to show that they need to do this. So when they are released, this is what we do. Like the Muslim Prison Board is there to facilitate and say, okay, this is what you want to do. And we are referring you to this sister organization, because we can't be doing what Sanzaf is doing, collecting money for bursaries and all that and skills development. It is available already. It is part and parcel of the infrastructure of the community. So we refer them there. And also, if they want to go back to their communities, the imams of those areas are informed to say that this particular person has been released. Please have a program for him in the masjid. He can have contact with the imam of the area. And also, they can also be financed as far as skills development is concerned. But at the end of the day, it comes to an individual What has he planned ahead in order for him to come out of the predicament that in which he was in? I'll give you an example. Someone comes after a correctional center, had been financed for a particular field that he wants to do, and at the end of the day, he says that I'm not happy with this field, I need to change again. And money has been spent already on this particular individual. So there is a lot that's why I said rehabilitation takes place while a person is in a correctional center. And also communities need to be conscientized. Like, for example, I'll give you now an example that the Muslim Prison Board will be in Clarkston Correctional Services next week on the 6th. And the training that we are giving, we're not giving to inmates, we are giving to the Department of Correctional Service how they should treat the Muslim inmates during the month of Ramadan and after Ramadan, and how to handle the food for Muslims. And if we don't give this education to the officials, they don't know how to treat Muslims while they are incarcerated. So it is a responsibility upon us. That's why we are saying we need volunteers as well, resources as well from the community for us to be able to we can have plans, but if we don't have resources, we will not be able to execute what we want to achieve. And secondly,
while you're talking about the education aspect of it, the way I see a solution forward is, like you were saying, each person will determine what is right for them. But having guided in the prison environment, I mean, if you take Nelson Mandela for an example, our ex-president, he actually went and educated himself. He took that extra mile. So is it not about having to go into the prison areas and getting these types of people, like, for example, guides like yourself, to go in there and say, okay, today we're going to have a rehabilitation set program to encourage you and show you the way and guide you from here inside. And then from outside, of course, speaking to the organizations, like you were saying, to create the job facilities for those prisoners as such. Because as we know, I mean, a lot of the time parolees get out and there's no job opportunities for them because of the stigma. Golden Miles wants to say something. What do you have to tell me there?
I want to dispel rehabilitation in South African prisons. There was never such a thing. It is a term, it's a buzzword, and those who go along that line have been captured by this system. Maybe they get the perks, they get favors, they are treated very nicely. Rehabilitation is an investment. And from where I'm sitting, 30 years after my imprisonment, private sector was never interested in investing in the training, the education, the skills development, and ultimately getting to the term rehabilitation, and then thereafter make sure that the rehabilitated product get reintegrated, monitored, evaluated, and make sure that that rehabilitated and integrated system person doesn't get lost in the system. Rehabilitation can only happen someday. It might never happen in our lifetime, where our prisons can be converted and turned into industrial hubs. When you go to prison for the wrong or the right reason and you are skilled, we put you at work immediately and you start to earn a stipend. From the stipend, you start to pay your rent. There's no more eat and lay and everything for free. Out of your stipend, you put money away into a family trust fund that must be supported by government, so that your family that you've left outside, if you were a responsible family man and you end up in prison for the wrong reason, that family trust fund can provide a grant to your family, so that when you get released someday, reintegration is much easier than it is and than the way it was. And you also put money away into a victims trust fund, so that the victims of crime and violence get a grant from your sweat that you are sweating in prison. If you are not skilled, you get skilled in prison. If you are semi-skilled, you get skilled, so that you become a qualified prisoner. And then you work, you come out, you are a responsible person, you get easily reintegrated, and if you've got skills, you've got easily absorbed by the private sector. Only then can we start talking about rehabilitation. But the rehabilitation that the Molana is talking about, and all the other NGOs or NPOs that has been captured, it is just and it is just cold air.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, I was going to ask.
I'm sorry, the brother is talking about captured. You must remember that when we do this work, we are not paid a cent by the government, number one. I don't know what capture is talking about. If you know such people, it is not us as Muslims, because we have been fighting for these rights for our Muslim brothers and sisters. And we have been in the trenches, not that captured. We are actually taking community resources and our own resources to try and alleviate the problems the brothers are facing in correctional services. And you must remember that already you are sitting with a national problem that even if an inmate comes out of a correctional center without job, is not with skills, is not guaranteed a job. The first thing is that the community is going back to, are they going to accept him? And secondly, the employers, are they going to accept him? And also, you must remember that we have got about 40% unemployment rate in South Africa. So, upon all of us in South Africa.
No, Malana, listen here. No, I'm taking exception here. Do you report prisoners that get killed? Do you report prisoners that get assaulted on a daily basis? Do you report to somebody the human rights abuses that is a daily happening in this institution before you come there and tell the people that they must be educated, they must be trained, and you move? Do you report people that get killed on a daily basis at the prison that you are? And I think that must be false.
I think
Miles, I'm gonna interrupt there, Miles. Let's just quickly talk about the challenge because he's talking about his challenge. I want to know the challenge, Miles, that you faced as an ex-offender when reintegrating yourself into mainstream society. What was it like?
Well, look, when I was released those days, I was released as a person that went to prison with a diploma in analytical chemistry, and very few of us had that privilege. And by the way, for as long as the Department of Correctional Services is not going to give us recognition and procedural agreement as a mass mobilization and membership-driven organization of prisoners' rights, everything that happens in this Department of Correctional Services is null and void, because then they collude with these NGOs that won't even say something to the media if they see prisoners get killed, if they see that prisoners killed one another, if they see prisoners are doing the wrong things. They keep quiet and they are told, what you see here, you don't say a word, or else we are no more going to allow you to come into these prisons again.
Okay, let's get away from that topic. Let's get back to the fact that what I wanted to discuss today, sure.
Can I respond to that and highlight a few issues there? Number one is, I think if he has encountered any of such experiences, unfortunate, but we as the Muslim Prison Board, our role, number one, you must understand that it is spiritual care. When we go there, our main focus is spiritual care. Anything that has to do with spiritual care, we have defended our Muslim brothers and sisters. And the killing of people, it is another branch that deals with that. And at no stage were we told that if you don't report these human rights abuses that are happening, you are going to be, you're not going to be allowed here. I think it's a misplaced comment that is giving. It's his experience, and we will say it's unfortunate if he's experienced that much.
Yes.
And we as the Muslim Prison Board, our role in services is to preserve the spirituality of a person when he's in a correctional center. That is our role. And it is well spelled within the Correctionals Act, and we abide by that. That is what we deal with.
That is very true. But what challenges do you see these parolees facing when they're trying to reintegrate themselves back into society? I'm sure you do keep in touch with them, and as you were saying, through the NGOs and stuff. What do you think their challenges are once they're trying to reintegrate themselves into society, apart, of course, from having to find jobs and getting into the workforce? What other challenges do you see them facing?
The first one is to be accepted by family members. It is a very very disturbing. We have very disturbing statistics that we have, that our communities are unwilling to accept those who have been in correctional centers. So to reunite them with their families and create relationships between them, it's very difficult, right? And hence it then extends itself into the community. And unfortunately, the government at large doesn't have, actually, it should be a national-driven agenda to see to that these inmates, this is what we are going to do for them. What the government has done is that they've said that crime is a societal problem, which means that the people who have been dealing now with inmates in the correctional centers who lack resources, like the government, we are not in the same equal footing with the government. We lack resources, and the government doesn't play any role in that. So what needs to be done is for society to accept these people, and government coming to the party as well. Unlike in other countries where the government actually pays people who are trying to do this work.
I so agree with you there. But also, don't you think it's also imperative for all these other NPOs, and including government, like you were saying, to go out and create education in the different societies and communities as such, to make them understand the plights and the situations of these parolees? Because I think many a time, like you were saying, they get stigmatized. But the thing is, because there's not enough education being an awareness created about the types of challenges these people have faced and what it means for them coming out from there, and making people understand that they need a second chance at life.
That's what I'm saying, Sister Nafeesa, is that at face value, people will accept that this is what is going to happen. But when a person is released and say that this person, they know that it committed a crime of this magnitude, and say that they is your family member, it can be your brother or sister, people are unwilling to do that. So there is need for a national drive on that.
Yes, exactly.
Like I've mentioned,
that's what I was trying to say.
We are going to Klerksdorp next week. We are going to educate the community there. 2 weeks ago, we were in Polokwane educating the community concerning these issues. So we are doing that. But when it becomes a government-driven initiative, it makes a big difference. And as well as
I agree with you. It adds a lot more credibility to what you're doing. And I think people take you more seriously then.
Yes. We as NGOs, we don't have any funding from the government, by the way. Like, I wish that brother was saying that we have funding from the government, zero funding from the government. And our volunteers who goes there, what they are given by the government is sometimes it's some petrol money to come there. That's all. Right. And at times as well, that is a challenge as well, that they don't have a budget for that. So it is important, like I've mentioned, that we have recognized that it is important to use our time when we are there, while they are there, we educate them. And as far as Islam is concerned, it is our responsibility to do that. Yes, of course, there will be challenges in any endeavor that is done by any human being. There will be a lot of challenges. And I'm not saying that we are doing 100%. What we are doing is not ideal for what we want to actually achieve, because of the challenges that I've mentioned in the entire conversation that we have been having. And I would like also to have, when we are done, I would like also to meet Miles and have, share those experiences, and you can join us in our initiatives as well. In our
let's just go back to Miles quickly, because we seem to be running out of time. Miles, from your side, being an ambassador in some way to try and do the Crime in South Africa prisons rehabilitation speaker and advisor, what would you say is the most important thing for society to understand the plights of ex-parolees and integrating them into society, and how do we go about for helping them overcome those challenges? Because as we know, it is very difficult. Let's just stick to that question.
Well, the Department of Correctional Services must be the department that the community must criticize for turning our brothers and our sisters into worse criminals when they go in there out someday. We must educate the community that you are taxpayers and your money is being wasted at the Department of Correctional Services for doing the direct opposite to what corrections is all about. And before I forget, we have declared the entire April 2021 as an official, legally protected hunger strike protest action in South African prisons. And each and every prisoner has got a right to protest, and they must just educate that prisoner what is the consequences and what application forms must that prisoner fill in order to legalize the strike and to get permission to strike, and in order to, in fact, have an organized, peaceful protest, hunger strike protected action.
What message, Miles, what message would you give the communities out there as far as stigmatization is concerned? Because the minute a person hears ex-parolee, ex-prisoner, of course they freeze up and they don't know how to deal with the person. What sort of advice and message would you give them? Because we want the communities to actually understand the situations they're in and, of course, how to deal with it.
There's no advice we can give the community because they're dealing with a person who went in there as a minor petty offender and came out there a hardened criminal. In fact, the advice that I can give the community, they must stream their anger to this Department of Correctional Services that has corrupted prisoners and the staff and that has turned prisoners to worse criminals. That's it.
Can I conclude as well?
Okay,
there's no other advice I can give them. I would like to know from the Molana, would they support us when we go back to the Department of Correctional Services and say to them, we need them to give us recognition procedural agreement so that we know exactly how to work with them, what agreement we have with them, and how procedural are we going to rid this department from what it is now. Nothing else but a correctional services instead of a correctional services.
Maulana Ahmad, let's just quickly talk about, before we go, your reaction to that. But I would also say, I think it's important to do the most important part about that is to educate society. And I think you're going on the right path there, because as you say, you're going out to different places and spaces to be able to make people understand the situations at hand and trying to reintegrate these people, I think is a very difficult one. There's a lot of challenges they're facing, and it looks like we're going to have to delve deeper into the subject at some point in time.
I would say that I think the problem is coming from our broken society. I think where we need to start is not only looking, you remember the correctional services is a last receiving end of society's problems. So if we don't have family life that is sound, education systems that talks to not committing crime, and also having support structures within our communities where we see someone is doing wrong, we try and bring them onto the straight path, we are losing the game. Because remember, the justice system starts in the home. When a child is brought up, and as well as the education system that we have in our communities, it should be the cornerstone of bringing up that child who understands what is wrong and right. And lastly, if our justice system is broken, needs fixing, because we have seen that the justice system that we have now does not cater for proper rehabilitation of people who can come back into society and pick up from where they left meaningfully, contributing economically, socially, for the betterment of society. So it's not working. So what we are doing as the National Muslim Prison Board, it is trying to patch up those gaps that have been created by this system, from the social structure to the justice system and ending up in a correctional services. That's where we need members of society. I think we shouldn't be pointing fingers to each other at this point, but we should be coming together and see what can we do to help.
I so agree with you. I think creating a united front is going to make much of a difference as far as the subject is concerned. And I'm sure Miles would agree with me there.
And Miles, I would like to meet Miles at some point, and as well as whatever initiative they have, we can see how we can support that initiative as well. Because at the end of the day, every human life or human life is equally worth, whether it's in a correctional center or whatever people are doing to contribute towards the corruption he's mentioning, they also need rehabilitation.
Most definitely.
Yeah, that's why we are saying that we are not only educating the inmates as far as their lives, we are also educating the correctional services officials as far as their duty is concerned. So
but we also need to understand the situations they're in and the challenges they face. So I think it's a holistic thing that we have to sit down, look at, and come up with the right solutions as far as rehabilitation is concerned. And I'm sure you would agree with me there, Miles.
Well, I think, as a point of departure, the department or government must get rid of the politicians in this department. From the ministers and the deputy, these are politicians that they've got nothing to do with the education, training, skill development, and rehabilitation of people that has done wrong or who has been in prison for the wrong work. They must get rid of the politicians because they go there and play politics, and in the meantime, Rome is burning. They must get honest people, educated people, hardworking people, people that are prepared to learn by the job, public servants, to rid this department from the legacy it comes from. And how do you encourage a community to don't have a stigma over ex-offenders who come out of prison being worse people they went in there?
Look, Miles, I'm going to interrupt you there because we seem to be running out of time, but I really do think you should hook up with Maulana Ahmad Namutamba, because he seems to be having the right ideology of how to solve the problem. I think there's always amicable ways to sort situations out, and I think he has the right foresight. So maybe what we need to do is, Maulana, you need to hook up with Miles and see going forward how we can take this into a better situation, as you said. And I so agree with you. Everything starts from a young age, from at home, and integrating things from society. And then, as you say, everything starts at home, and I do agree with you there. But it's also having to look at the gap that needs to be created as far as rehabilitation is concerned, and stigmatization as well. And I think the education factor would be the most important thing. So I want to thank both of you for joining me for a very interesting conversation. I hope we could tap into the story even further at some point in time to see if the two of you have connected and we've created a better way of having to deal with the situation. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you giving me that time.
Before we go, Sister Nafeesa,
Sure.
Tomorrow I'm going on another community program in Poch. If Miles can join me tomorrow for that public awareness as well. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. Thank you, Miles, for your time and for joining us. We unfortunately have run out of time and we can't chat any further because we've already gone over time for the show. But I want to thank you for taking the time out and discussing the issues that are at hand. And I'm sure we can, as I said, going forward with you and Maulana, maybe just teaming up, as we say, united we stand, to create a better situation and create a better environment and fix things as far as the situation is concerned.
Connect me with the Maulana. Connect me, please. Please connect me.
Most definitely. We will definitely send you all the details, and we're looking forward to that collaboration because I think going forward, Maulana's foresight is definitely going to change the way you see things. And I think we're going to see a better integration and rehabilitation of these parolees and a change as far as education is concerned from a society point of view. So Maulana, we want to thank you for actually creating that type of environment where you go out and create the education, because we think it's imperative for people to also understand that particular perspective, because as I say, I think look at it from our own perspective and it could be the wrong way. So thank you so much to both of you for joining us, and we wish you nothing but the best going forward. And definitely we're going to tap into the two of you to see what you've collaborated and done for us as far as the subject is concerned. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We'll chat real soon. Thank you, Miles. You take care of yourself and do stay safe, and we wish you guys nothing but the best. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
You too. Right. Malana Ahmad Namutamba and Miles Bhudu. Oh, what a definite, interesting conversation there with loads going on. I think it's important for us to understand that if we want to create better spaces and places, which is something I speak about every week, is to be able to understand each other. And by understanding each other is creating the education. And it's nice to see that I'm hoping that that collaboration will take place with Miles and Malana, because he seems to be having the right foresight as far as rehabilitation and integration into society is concerned, by going out there and creating the awareness. I want to leave you with something important this morning. It says, the you that's had a rough week, the you that seems to be under constant storm clouds, the you that feels invisible, the you that doesn't know how much longer you can hold on, the you that has lost faith, the you that always blames yourself for everything that goes wrong. To you, you are incredible. You make this world a little bit more wonderful. You have so much potential and so many things left to do. You have time. Better things are coming your way. So please hang in there. You can do it. And to Malana and Miles, you can do it as well. We can definitely have a better society by creating the Ubuntu and having a better South Africa. So from myself and the team, thank you for joining us with this very inspirational mid-morning talk. From myself, Nafeesa Dangor, and the team, have a lovely one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.